Hi, I'm Angela Wolf. I'm a fashion designer and online instructor. And today I want to give you a couple ideas on how to embellish with applique. And this is not any ordinary applique. This is really easy to do. And look at how fun this is. This was just a regular sheath dress. And all of this pink and black that I attached on here is attached with a zigzag stitch. But how did I get that really cool design? Let me show you. We're going to use an electronic cutting machine. Look at the designs that you can come out of this. You can scan in your own, or you can pick one of theirs. It could be a real small design, or it can be a big design, or as on my dress, those are really big designs. So the possibilities are endless. Let's start with a couple of the basics you got to keep in mind. You need to put a backing on the fabric. It keeps it stable, and it'll help stick it to the mat. And then when it's cut, you'll peel it off, and the backing of that will also be sticky. So one side of this backing, show you a piece here, has a shiny part. That's the part you're going to press to the fabric. And the other side is paper that you'll peel off later. If you don't do that, this is what you'll end up with. A little bit of a mess. Can you imagine, this is one of the appliques from the dress. Can you imagine trying to attach that, even with a spray adhesive, which I used to do a lot of times to spray and then attach to the garment and then stitch? This would be a mess. So that's why you need the backing. Here I have, this is one of the things I cut from the dress. You can see the design. I was able to cut two on this piece of fabric. And this machine allows you to move things around. So if you have a whole bunch of things you need to cut, you don't waste any fabric. But this would be a great, maybe a hem on a dress or maybe on the sleeve. I save all these for later. Okay, another thing about the machine, it has an adjustable knife that can go higher and lower, and it has a pressure that changes. So you can cut any fabric from very light to very heavy. There's one little neat thing on the machine where you're allowed to test cutting, which is very important. This sample here, I did not test it. And look at what happened. It's cut a little bit, but not all the way through. So this is just a mess. Here's another look at that backing. I pressed it on, and if this was okay, I would peel this off. See how that sticks? That would stick right to the fabric. So you got a little better view of what that backside looks like. So for this one, I'm using a stretch cotton. This is a cotton sateen, polyester, cotton. There's a little polyester and some lycra in it, but it's mostly cotton. Very nice fabric. The backing helps it not to stretch while it cuts, and the backing also helps the applique not stretch when you attach it to the dress. So here's my backing. Here's one that I have already cut out. This was again on the dress. This was a smaller version of that other one I showed you. Again, if I cut a nice long line of these, this would make a great hem on a dress. And one more time, the backing just peels off like this, and this is sticky. So let's get going. Here I've already pressed this. Again, the shiny side would go against the fabric and you would press that down. I've already done that for you, right here. And let's take a look at some of these designs. I want to go ahead and, this is a nice white sheath, which is very popular, and we want to add some royal blue to it. So here I've already cut a couple of these designs. Look at how small those designs are. It didn't take any work for me except clicking a couple of buttons. Again, here's the applique. I could, if I wanted to use the bigger pieces, I could just peel this back. See how it just comes off like this. And I could stick it on here if I wanted to, say, on the hem. There's these little ones. I've already picked these off. So these are ready to be pressed on the dress. The idea is you need to create your own design. So maybe I would want to have one of these cut this way and one of these cut this way. A little more asymmetrical. You could create a belt, all kinds of options. But let's get going on this machine. Here is the board. It's a little sticky. I already have my fabric on here. I've already tested my cutting. Remember I said don't forget to do that? That's what it comes out like. So just, you can move it to the far corner, wherever you want it to be. So I'm going to, I could either scan in my own design, but I want to choose one of theirs. They have a ton in here. So I'm going to go through here, and I found this really cool section down here. It almost looks like a king's hat. And there's a bunch of different designs in here. So, see, it goes on and on. These are the three designs I used on the dress. All three of those. I made some of them larger, some of them smaller. Let's go to this one. And you can adjust the height and the width. Why would you want to do that? Well, maybe you want a couple on the paper. There's a nice grid on here. So I know that this paper, and you never want to go right to the edge. Give yourself a good seam allowance on here for cutting. Otherwise, it can come undone. So I know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have a good 6 inches on the width. And I have a good 3 inches this way. So let's just go maybe 3.5 on the width. See how this changes? I could also make it real large. There are a lot of options here. And I'm going to click OK. That's my design. Click OK. Now I can add 2 of these. I can change the direction. Anything that you want to do, you can pretty much do on here. I'm going to cut, let's just cut one of these right now. So there's my design. Now, how do I make sure that I'm actually cutting the paper? Well, let's load our board. And this will actually scan in, let's see, this right here will scan in this board and tell me where my fabric is. So say you have 2 different pieces of fabric, okay? Say you want one design here, one design here. You're good. You can pick where they go. I'll show you this. And I also don't want to accidentally have my design on my test cut that I did earlier that I mentioned. Here we go. How about right there? That's perfect. I know it's going to be right in the middle of the fabric. Again, there's a lot of editing options, but that's what we want for now. And it gives me an option if I want to draw or cut. Well, I'm not using paper. Actually, I want it cut because we're going to make an applique. And that's all. And it cuts. That's pretty easy. So let's just look at one that I already have here. I already started to peel it while I was talking to you. This is one of the designs. And it peeled right off of this. Just like this. See how this is the paper? And if I wanted to peel more, I could. Like if I wanted to use that backing. So I think you're getting an idea of that sticky side. By the way, did you see how fast that was? It's already finished. So here are my designs. I need to kind of pick out, like on the dress, I had some down here. I like these little guys. You can put them anywhere you want. Let's see what we have here. Here's my board. It also comes with this little knife in case any of the pieces get stuck. But it looks like it's pretty good. So here's another one. So I have 3 different sizes that I can work with. That's the best part of this applique, is everything doesn't have to be uniform. So check this out. Okay, I'm really liking this. This is fun. So now what? Okay, well, we have to press it into place. One other thing I noticed while I was working on these pieces is that the edges do not fray. So technically, if I was going to put this in an area where I wasn't worried it wasn't going to get a lot of action, like on your arm or something like that, you really could just put another piece on here, press it, and it probably would stay. You could just do some crazy zigzags across it or anything like that. So let's see what we've got. One thing I didn't mention is when you're putting your spray adhesive on, when you're, not your spray, but when you're putting your backing on, take your iron and lift and press, and lift and press, and lift and press. No steam, by the way. And if you slide it, sometimes you can end up with wrinkles and then it messes up your fabric for cutting. So here's my design. I'm going to be adding a lot more than that, but let's get started with this. So I have my stitch set at a 3.0 width and a 1.0 length. Make sure to test it on your fabric first. And I just want to stitch along the edge of this. But there's something else here. On the other designs, I made sure that maybe my stitching might not have kept going around each edge because I'm keeping my feed dogs up and I'm stitching and maneuvering the fabric, which is a little bit different than free motion. So one of my lines might come down through here and another one might come down and cross those two. So come up with your own design. If you have to use chalk, go ahead and use chalk. But I'm just gonna, let's just start in a good spot. And if you get to a sharp curve, don't be afraid to cut your thread, start over and make another maneuver. It's your design. You can do whatever you want to with it. So watch my hand placement. It's laid flat. If you have a nice table like this for the fabric to stay level, that's really a bonus. And I'm just stitching. I'm lining up the center of this line on the edge, right down the center of the foot. If you have an open toe foot, that's always a great foot to use on this as well. And watch my hands. I'm twisting like this. I'm twisting the fabric. Make sure you stitch a little bit slower as you go around the curves. Oh, by the way, I'm using purple thread so you can see it. I'm not colorblind. Although, I kind of like the purple and blue. Okay, I'm getting to a corner. Again, my hands are moving. Now, by the way, when you finish a ton of these designs, make sure that you're not like really tense. You'll end up with your shoulders will ache. Okay, we're getting to the curve. I just want to go around just a little bit more. Now here's one thing on the curve. I'm going to hold the fabric. This one's going to stay, and I'm going to move my hand this way. I'm using the feed dogs and my hands to maneuver this fabric. So I'm actually holding the fabric here and sliding it around this way. And what this does is the zigzag, which goes like this, I'm holding it so my zigzag is becoming more of a circle on its own. Holding and going around. So let me just stop here and show you this. See how I was holding that and it's going around like this? Okay, now see these little wrinkles here? When I press this, this will be fine. But if you have a fabric that's really light, you might want to put in a backing on the fabric as well, like a tearaway or something like that, just to hold it in place. And one last thing, let me just show you on here. When you're going across these appliques, if this was the other side, I could go right across all of these. And you'll see what I'm talking about. So when I'm finished, this entire area would be finished, and then these would be little branches off of it. So don't be afraid, don't feel like you have to go around each corner here. Make your own design. So I'm using regular thread. You could use embroidery thread, you could use cotton thread, silk thread is really beautiful. The options are pretty much endless. And again, use a backing on here if you're finding that your fabric is stretching too much. And one last thing on these designs, if you like all these designs, you can save them and then reverse them so the other side will be the exact same thing, exact same size, except reverse. So dress up any garment with applique.